Salamat pagi. Anyway, thank you so much for coming this morning. We have a very exciting day ahead of us, and I'm so grateful to see all of you here, to see the diversity, and I'm really looking forward to our discussions. Thank you, you folks that have come from so far away. I hope you've had enough coffee so you can stay awake. So please have a look at your cell phones and turn your cell phones off so that we can have a very focused and wonderful discussion and that our speakers won't be interrupted. Also, I want to let you know that we are live streaming globally this session. So I'm just here to welcome you, and I want to introduce our moderator, who is our International Global Peace Foundation President, James Patrick Flynn. Mr. Flynn has more than 25 years experience in the development and management of educational and service projects in the nonprofit sector, including operations, grant writing, grant management, and program design and implementation. He previously served as GPF's Senior Vice President with responsibilities for GPF educational programs worldwide. Prior to his executive experience at GPF, Mr. Flynn has served as the President of the American Family Coalition, a grassroots educational organization with chapters in all of 50 states in America, advocating the promotion of family-friendly public policies. He previously worked as an adjunct professor for the state of Colorado's community colleges system, focused on design and delivery of business applications training. He is the co-founder of Street Smart, a nationally recognized nonprofit organization serving at-risk youth in Denver, Colorado, and served on the supervisory committee of the Denver Community Development Credit Union. Jim Flynn has been my boss for about 10 years, and so on a personal note, I have to say, he is the most hardworking man I have ever met in my entire life, and he's a great inspiration to me.
Thank you very much, Gail. Good morning, Your Excellencies and leaders here, brothers and sisters in our world community of faith. Thank you so much for joining us for this important convening and this important discussion this morning. We are set up here in a roundtable format. We hope that we can engage each other in meaningful conversation this morning and throughout this forum that we're holding today. I'd like to first begin by setting the context of our discussion. Because of the importance of the topics that we're addressing here, we are grateful that you've taken extra time to join us today, what is a pre-convention forum for us in advance of our Global Peace Convention opening this evening with our welcoming banquet. I look around the room here and I see many very significant leaders from around the world. From Indonesia, Dr. Marsudi, welcome. From the Philippines, from Nigeria, Bishop Sunday Onwoha, welcome to all of you, and to our Malaysian hosts. Thank you so much for welcoming us here in Kuala Lumpur, and also for joining us with this important discussion. The overarching theme of our convening here in Kuala Lumpur is unity in diversity, building social cohesion for sustainable peace through universal aspirations, principles, and values. That also is the overarching theme and intention of our Interfaith Forum today. As Gail mentioned, I'm the International President of the Global Peace Foundation, and I want to share that in our work in moving toward these important goals for us in our human family, that our motivating vision is expressed in four simple words with we consider large and profound meaning. One, family under God. that all of us on this planet, in the human family, are connected together in a fundamental way. And we can say that we are one human family because despite our differences of ethnic background or race or language, or also the expressions of ways in which we worship and connect to our spirituality, all of us share a common origin. Every human being shares a common origin in the Creator God. And through that position for each of us, every human being has intrinsic value and thus is worthy of being treated with respect and dignity. It is our conviction that in our world today, the most pressing issue is actually an ethical issue. How is it that we, as part of this globalized world coming together today, how is it that we can live and work and benefit, find happiness and prosper together for all members of the one human family? Ultimately, it is our conviction that we can exercise our human creativity and ingenuity given to us by the Creator God to solve problems if our motivation is directed properly. If we express our care and concern for our whole human family, we can address the problems which plague our planet. We can address issues that allow us to resolve conflicts. We can find the moral will to solve problems of poverty and other kinds of inequities on our planet. We can address the endemic corruption which plagues all of our nations in our world. And so the issue is the ethical challenge. And it is also our conviction that there are no leaders more important to that effort than faith leaders, than men and women who feel called within their faith traditions, motivated by the teachings and tenets of their faith traditions to work together for the greater good of the human family. And so that is our starting point for this very broad and auspicious theme, unity and diversity. How can we find the basis upon which we can work together and solve problems together? It is our conviction that despite our differences in doctrine and theology, that the great faith traditions that motivate the billions of people on our planet ultimately speak to fundamental universal principles that are truths, that are not the unique possession of any one faith tradition. They're truths that speak to the reality of life endowed by the Creator. And that as we grow in our affirmation of those basic principles, we can likewise then articulate, agree upon, and recognize shared values. That shared values are the basis upon which we can live and work together, that are the basis upon which the great diversity expressed within our human family can also allow us to find unity of fundamental purpose and the ways to solve problems together. So our first session today is to discuss this broader theme: faith leadership for the greater good, forging unity in diversity based on shared values. We have a format here today which will allow us to have the discussion and intervention from our distinguished group gathered here, and we hope that we can use this opportunity to discuss in substantive ways. And I think all of us know that in doing the kind of work that I think all of us feel called to, that our discussions are important, but also the connections and bonds and relationships that we can forge in these kinds of convenings are most important. When we meet each other and connect each other, person to person, heart to heart, we can also recognize the spirit that actually motivates us is something that we share beyond the differences that are unique to each of us. So we look forward to those discussions here today and continuing in our sessions in this Global Peace Convention. Again, thank you very much for joining us. As Gail mentioned, we do want to make the best use of our time and also to include in this kind of discussion and conversation a larger audience as much as possible. We are blessed in this age where we can communicate in fantastic ways. And as all things in technology, technology is value neutral, can be used in many ways. Let's use it for goodness. Let's use it to promote those kinds of ideals that speak to the noble qualities of our human character. So we're streaming these conversations here today, and look forward to having a larger conversation even beyond those joining us here. To begin with, we'll have remarks by three presenters, and we'll then have a discussion. At your place is a microphone. This is provided by our partners here in the Office of the Prime Minister, so we're grateful for the technology at our fingertips. And once we go to the discussion session, you'll be able to add your remarks and introduce yourself and contribute to the discussion. And there's a button at everyone's place to obviously turn on the microphone and speak. So again, thank you for joining. I will begin now by turning to our first contribution. Here in our convention, we have representatives joining us from more than 40 nations, and some from near and some from far. And so our planet is quite a large place, right? So some of us traveled, I know myself, to travel here to Malaysia. I was in the air more than 20 hours, about 22 hours in flight. So this is on the opposite side of the globe from where I am from. And I know some of our other colleagues from other continents traveled likewise for a long way. We're very grateful that there is a large delegation here from Africa, and most importantly, a very significant delegation here from Nigeria. We convened a Global Peace Leadership Conference there just last month, about 1 month ago, and learned a lot through our friends and colleagues in Nigeria as they are dealing with challenges, but also drawing upon great strengths in their faith tradition. So to begin with, we'll hear from several leaders from Nigeria who can exemplify this focus of our theme in terms of shared values and how we can live and work together and show models that lead us to overcome our differences. So first, let me invite to give remarks Reverend John Joseph Hyab. Reverend Hyab is the Special Advisor on Religious Affairs for Christian Matters to the Executive Governor of Kaduna State in northern Nigeria. Reverend Hyab is a Baptist clergyman and was, until December 2010, the Secretary of the Christian Association of Nigeria, Kaduna State Chapter, an office he held for 8 years. He also served as the spokesperson of CAN for 19 northern states and the federal capital of Abuja. He is actively engaged in issues relating to religious crises and freedom, conflict resolution, human rights and good governance, and recently, religious perspective on climate change. Please join me in welcoming Reverend John Joseph Hyab.
Thank you, Mr. Jim, and let me welcome all of us, especially those of us that are from other parts of the world. And let me thank our Malaysian host for the wonderful hospitality. Let me begin by saying, as a clergyman, My primary responsibility is to share God's word and God's love to the people around me. Currently, I serve as a special advisor to a governor, but I have not lost focus of my calling as a clergyman. Every Sunday, and sometimes within the week, I am privileged by God to preach to a large audience, to teach to a large audience. With this understanding in mind, I try to put together my calling and the current assignment I'm doing, ensuring that I live as a clergy by example, and I also demonstrate the truth of these words that I teach every day in church and in public places. At the course of work, I met this gentleman called Sheikh Haliru Maraya, who is seated right by my side here on my right. He is also an Islamic cleric, a young man like me, but a very famous preacher in his own right. And we started working and serving together. Looking at the focus of discussion this morning, faith leadership for a broader good, we chose as leaders to use our God-given position to influence our community for good, to render service with a different kind of spirit. It is a common knowledge in the community where we come from that Christians and Muslims live in suspicion. Christians suspect Muslims, Muslims suspect Christians. Even when a clergyman from a Muslim speaks his truth, a Christian clergy will look at it with already a prejudicial mind, thinking this is not true, he is not telling me the truth, he is lying. And similarly, if a Christian clergy speaks sincerely, the Muslim cleric will also not believe him because of the existing prejudice and stereotype that exists among us. We wanted to make a difference. We wanted to give a different picture, a picture that is sincerely from our heart, a picture that we can live, and even when we are gone, our children will know our parents did not disappoint them. I met him and we started working. And we resolved that in this community where there is so much suspicion, we will make a difference. Having worked closely with him for some time, I learned a lot from him. And I realized that myself and him, we share one thing in common. We are all human, created by one God. So we are members of one family under God. Though he is a Muslim, I am a Christian, but our humanity is the same. He feels pain, he can fall sick, and I do the same. And so we started collaborating and working together to the extent that our late boss, late Patrick Ibrahim Yakoa, called and addressed us as the Kaduna twins. It is the common word today people call us in town as the twins of Kaduna Government House. Because if you meet Mariah, anywhere you find him, except if it is in the mosque, you know that in the next 5 minutes or less, you will see me there. And if you find me, except if it is on Sunday in the church, you know that in less than 5 minutes from that time, you will see Mariah there. And we have adopted this understanding among ourselves that we should learn to trust and believe in one another. I don't need to argue, I don't need to dispute, I don't need to tell Mariah certain things, but I need to believe him as he presents his facts and give him the chance to prove himself. Because most of the reason why we have crises and quarrels among Christians and Muslims is because we have since formed certain prejudices among ourselves that when people come to tell you sincerely their minds, you are not willing to listen to their side of the story. You make conclusions even without knowing what they are trying to tell you. And because of these conclusions, we go back to our subjects and preach and teach them about these negative conclusions. And sometimes these negative conclusions trigger serious crises that we ourselves cannot control. As a Christian, the Bible teaches that I should love my enemies and pray for those who persecute me. I have a friend who is not my enemy. He is not in any way persecuting me. So if I'm going to pray for my enemies and love those who persecute me, then the man who is not persecuting me and he is not my enemy, I think I will love him and do more for him. And if I want to truly live my Bible, or live as the Bible teaches me, I must love Mariah, I must pray for him, I must wish him the way I wish myself. I understand one of the big challenges is what we as leaders say in public, and then when we go to sit with our children, we say something different. I have learned in this leadership to say to my children what I would say in public, even in private. I've told my children several times, if anybody meets you and tell you that Muslims are bad, tell them that your daddy said it's not true. Muslims are good. Because your daddy have a wonderful Muslim that is his friend and colleague in his place of work. So don't allow anybody to plant seed of prejudice between you and any Muslim, assuming or believing that Muslims are evil. Because one Muhammad or one Abdullahi may be bad, do not in any way show that Muslims are bad. It's only that Abdullahi or that Muhammad that is bad. And so when we stop generalizing people or making people look evil, or a religion look evil because one man from that faith commits something that is wrong, then we are going to have the best of our society. In most cases, if one Christian offends you, the next thing you do is that everybody that bears a Christian name, you look at him from a very judgmental point of view. You just assume they are all the same. There are 1,000,001 Christians that will not do what that Christian have done. So that man alone is the one that has committed the offense. But Christians are not bad. Similarly, that man alone is that Muslim that has committed that offense. But Muslims are not bad. I find in Mariah a man who loves God, a man who believes in God, a man who uses his God's given knowledge to relate with his fellow human being. And I love him, and I'm proud of him, and I always relate with him, because I believe for us to have a better society, I as a Christian cleric and Mariah as an Islamic cleric must work together to change the perception, to change the impression, that is the negative impression that is existing in our community. We must lead by example, say what we do and do what we say. We must be seen working together. We must not be seen as we are at war with each other. Because the moment our followers see that I, as their clergy, is at war with another Islamic cleric, it is just a license to tell them that any other person that is a Muslim is an enemy, so go and fight him. So I must not allow that to happen. I must do everything within my reach to build a godly relationship, an exemplary relationship, that in my leadership, I am leading with example. I am leading and hoping that the people that I'm leading can see something positive from my leadership and follow. The world will never be a better place if Christian clerics and Muslim clerics continue to sit among their own and say negative things about each other, thinking they are educating their followers. The truth about it is that it is not education, but it is an inciting. When we incite our followers against each other, then we can never have a space to really practice our faith. There is one unique, common thing among Christians and Muslims. Our faith strives through evangelism. We win people to our faith. How can you win people that you don't love? How can you win people that you don't greet? How can you win people that you don't respect? How can you win people that you don't trust? How can you win people that you don't accept and tolerate and appreciate them? You see, as a churchman, I will not agree with anybody who is in the same compound or the same community with me that hardly say good morning to me, and only to come the next day and hand over a flyer or a handbill inviting me to their church crusade or church revival or church program, the first thing that will come into my mind is that, am I coming to your church to learn how not to greet my fellow human being? Am I coming to your church to learn how not to accept my fellow human being? Am I coming to your church to learn how not to tolerate another fellow human being? Here we have today people trying to portray faith, but in faith, they refuse to accept fellow human beings, and they want to invite human beings to their faith. No reasonable person will accept faith if there is no love, if there is no respect, if there is no tolerance. People will easily embrace your faith if you love them, if you respect them. No wonder Jesus, the chief example of Christians, was a man who loved everybody. I used to cite this, and I'm going to say it as I conclude, that in Christian theology, we believe that we should tell the truth and the truth will set us free. But I have this clear understanding of truth from Jesus' perspective. Jesus knew Judas was the man that betrayed him. But when Jesus was eating the Last Supper with his disciples, he only said, one of you will betray me. He never said, Judas, I know you. With all the privileges I've given you, you are about to betray me. Jesus knew the act of relating and communicating with people. If you relate with good language, if you communicate with good gesture and friendship, you will not hurt people, but you will win people. If Jesus had openly just said, Judas, I'm disappointed in you. Of all you, my treasurer, you are the one that will betray me. I believe some of the disciples would have actually hung on Judas. But Jesus knew the spirit of man, and he chose to use good words. One of the strong reasons why we fight and quarrel among us today is we want to preach religion, but we don't use good word in preaching religion. We use very bad language, we use unfriendly language, we use hostile language, and we say we are preaching God. The master of our faith, Christianity, did not do that. He was a friendly man in speech. He was a friendly man in relationship. And if I must be a Christian and prove to be a true Christian, then I must be also friendly in relationship and friendly in the way I speak to my fellow human being. With that, the society will be better and peaceful, and I can effectively practice my faith. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Reverend Hyun. I realize that I should apologize because I should have introduced your twin so that he could speak immediately after you. So let me do that expeditiously. Next, we'll hear from Sheikh Abdul Hayru Mariah, Special Advisor to the Kaduna State Government on Islam and Hajj matters. Sheikh Mariah is a famous Islamic cleric in Kaduna of northern Nigeria. A graduate of Bayero University in Kano with a bachelor's degree of arts in Islamic studies. Sheikh Mariah was a school teacher and a regular preacher during Tafsir on television and radios. He is currently the special advisor on Islamic and Hajj matters to the executive governor of Kaduna State in Nigeria, and happily married with 5 children. Please welcome Sheikh Mariah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وآله الطيبين الطاهرين وصحبه جميعا. Our distinguished moderator, the esteemed and indefatigable Mr. Joslin, other distinguished brothers and sisters from across the globe, I say Assalamu alaikum to you. My contribution as far as this gathering is concerned centers on how to secure a cohesive society in a diverse community. First, I would like to thank the last speaker, my dear brother, Reverend Hyun, for setting the ball to roll. Unarguably, all of us here belong to one family under God, and that is the esteemed family of Adam and Eve. May peace be upon them. From the Islamic point of view, the Quran says, Ya ayyuhan nasu inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha, al-ayah. O mankind, we have created you from a male and female, referring to Adam and Eve. May the pleasure of Allah be upon them. When I met Reverend Hyun, the first thing that ran through my mind was that I have met one of the members of my original family. That is the family of Adam and Eve. All of us here belong to that family. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has unquantifiable creatures. But if you look at this great and historic hotel auditorium, you would not come across a dog, a horse, a lion, or an elephant inter alia, because they don't belong to the family we belong to. Although they are part and parcel of the creation of Allah, but they have not been invited. An invitation has not been extended to them. Why? Because they are not part and parcel of the family of Adam and Eve. So we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for making us to make that esteemed team family. So the first thing you are expected to do as a Muslim is that to inculcate in you that whenever you come across any human being, if you are older than he is or you are older than she is, consider him as your younger brother. Consider her as your younger sister, because you originally belong to one family. Hence, you are not expected to dishonor him or her on the basis of racial, tribal, geographical, or spiritual inclination. Because you belong to the same family. Maybe the person practices a religion contrary to the one you practice. From the Islamic point of view, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken care of that. He says, La ikraha fid din, no compulsion in religion. That means you have no basis to hate one for the simple reason that one practices a religion contrary to yours. Because the sole proprietor of the religion says there is no compulsion in it. That means there is no basis for hatred. You don't have any right whatsoever, if you are living by the tenet of your religion, to hate somebody for the simple reason that the person practices another religion contrary to yours. To buttress up my point, you can refer to how our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam lived with the non-Muslims. Was there a time he hated somebody for the simple reason that that person was practicing a religion other than Islam? No. was there a time Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam refused to uphold the honor of a person for the simple reason that the person was not practicing Islam? No. So that is why when I came across this great gentleman, it ran through my mind that he belongs to the family I belong to. That is one family under God. And as a Muslim, you are persistently expected to be kind and just to all and sundry, regardless of any difference whatsoever. Particularly, you are expected to be kind and just to any person who practices a religion contrary to yours. The Quran says, "La yanhakumullahu anil lazina lam yuqatilukum fid dini wa lam yukhrijukum min diyarikum an tabarruhum wa tuqsidu ilayhim inna Allaha yuhibbul muqsidin." Technically, it means Allah does not prohibit you from being kind and just to the non-Muslims who have not driven you out of your homes for the sake of religion. For the sake of religion. Nor have they fought you for the sake of the religion you practice. So if one goes by the tenets of Islam, one will never fail to be kind and just to anybody who happens to be practicing a religion other than the one practices. That is why I always make concerted efforts to be kind and just to my dear Reverend Hayab, because I have been enjoined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be kind and just to all and sundry, regardless of tribal, racial, geographical, or any difference whatsoever. That is why, summarily, I can tell you that anything that belongs to me belongs to Reverend Hayab other than my wife. My pair of shoes, my car, my house, my car, everything of mine is his, with the exception of my dear wife, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibits that. You can be kind and just to all and sundry as being enjoined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the following ways. That means you can be kind to the non-Muslims by, one, upholding their religious right. Their right to practice the religion of their choice must be upheld, because the sole proprietor of the religion says, La ikraha fid din. That was why Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam successfully lived with the Jews of Medina and the Christians of Najran. In fact, he hosted a Christian delegation from Najran. Najran is contemporarily part and parcel of the present-day Saudi Arabia. Also, you are expected to protect their lives. Protect them from being killed. You are not expected as a Muslim to kill any human being. If you kill a human being today, the sin that is going to be recorded against you by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is tantamount to the sins you are to get, as if you have killed the entire mankind. That is what the Quran says. Min ajli zalika katabna ala bani Israila annahu man qatala nafsan bighairi nafsin aw fasadin fil ardi faka'annama qatala an-nasa jami'a. If you kill a human being today, regardless of their religion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will consider you as somebody who has subjected the entire mankind to extinction. That is why anyone who goes by the tenet of Islam will never kill a human being. You are expected to protect one's life. Do whatever you can to protect one from being killed, whether he or she practices your religion or not. You are duty bound to do whatever you can to protect his life, to ensure that his right to life is sacrosanct. His property too, you are expected to protect his property. And not as a Muslim, you are duty bound to protect the property of non-Muslims, regardless of tribal, geographical, national, or any reason whatsoever. That is why the property of my brother, Reverend Hyun, in his presence and absence, in my sight, is sacrosanct. Likewise, the property of mankind in its entirety, in my sight, is sacrosanct. You can also be kind and just to the non-Muslims by ensuring that their places of worship are sacrosanct. The sacrosanctity of their places of worship must be upheld by you. You have no right whatsoever to set a church ablaze. You have no right whatsoever to set a synagogue ablaze. You have no right whatsoever to set any place of worship ablaze. I can buttress up this point by saying, refer to how Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam lived. There was never a time Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam directed that a church should be either demolished or set ablaze. In fact, when he received the Najran Christian delegation, he permitted them to practice Christianity in his grand mosque in Medina in the 9th year of Hijrah. They paid him a courtesy call on a Thursday. The discussion continued up to a Sunday. All of a sudden, they began to stand up. He asked them, "Why are you standing up?" They replied by saying that they wanted to go out of his mosque to practice their religion outside. He said, "Practice your religion therein." And that was what transpired. You can refer to Ibn Kathir and other Quranic tafsir. It's there in Surah Al Imran. Look at how tolerant Muhammad was. If we were to live according to how he lived with the non-Muslims, the world would have gone far in terms of everything. Because we wouldn't have experienced a situation whereby a church has been destroyed or set ablaze. Then also, you are expected as a Muslim to consider the religion other than yours as sacrosanct. The honor of Christianity, Judaism should be upheld by you. If, for instance, I consider this bottled water as something to be worshipped by me, you have no right, as far as Islam is concerned, to insult this bottled water. The Quran says, وَلَا تَسُبُّ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ فَيَسُبُّ اللَّهَ عَدْوًا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. Do not insult what the idolaters worship. So if you insult an idol today, you have contravened a Quranic law, a Quranic injunction. In a nutshell, I love for Reverend Hyun and any other non-Muslim what I love for myself. Because we are all one family under God. My religion teaches me that I should love for mankind generally what I love for myself. The Prophet ﷺ said, and I quote, "Ahibba linnasi ma tuhibbu linafsik." Love for mankind what you love for yourself. If you want your religion to be insulted, then insult the religion of others. If you want your mosque to be demolished or destroyed or set ablaze, then do the same thing to the places of worship of others. Summarily, sectarian crises globally are recorded due to two things. One, the majority of the people who practice Christianity or Islam today are ignorant of the religion of their choice. The majority of Muslims today don't know even the rudimentary teachings of Islam. That is why they pass judgment basically on the basis of sentiment. In the same vein, the majority of today's Christians also practice Christianity ignorantly. They don't know even the basic rudimentary Christianity teachings. That is why we record problems, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. Secondly, those who know the religion are always being carried away by sentiment. And the Quran takes care of that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, as far as justice is concerned, وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمٍ عَلَىٰ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا اِعْدِلُوا هُوَ أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَىٰ. Do not allow the hatred you have for someone to prevent you from being just towards the person. That means even if you were to be hating someone, the hatred must not be a barrier to you from being just. You are expected to be just to your lover, and also to your enemy, if you have one. But according to the teachings of Islam, you are not even expected to have an enemy. There are 7 letters which are always expected to be discarded by Muslims. Enemies. The letters are 7. Enemies, if you count them. Enemies in the English language. Enemies. They are my enemies. You are always expected to discuss such 7-letter word. You are expected as a Muslim to substitute that 7-letter word with another 7-letter word, that is friends. You are expected to say, they are my friends, not they are my enemies. You are expected as a Muslim to substitute a 4-letter word, hate, with another 4-letter word, love. Do not say, I hate you, or do not inscribe on your heart that I hate you, but I love you. I love you. That is why when I came across this gentleman, up to this moment I'm talking to you, our distinguished audience, there was never a day we had a third party. There was never a day somebody mediated between us, because we always make concerted effort to live according to the tenets of the religion we practice on the basis of our choice. Lastly, I want to enjoy all and sundry to bear in mind persistently that you were first a human being before being a Christian or a Muslim. You were first a human being. If you were not to be a human being, for instance, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had created you to be a goat or a horse or a donkey, we don't have a Muslim donkey or a Christian donkey or a cow Muslim or a cow Christian. First and foremost, you were a human being, and subsequently you became a Muslim or a Christian. So that relationship, human relationship, must always be sanctified, must always be upheld. I have questions for you. One, as a Muslim, did Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam allow Christians and Jews to practice their religion during his time? Did Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam allow the Jews and the Christians to practice their religion during his time? Yes. So if he did, do not do anything today to hinder any Christian or a Jew from practicing their religion. One, was there a time Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam ordered the destruction of any place of worship? Even during his battles, his code of conduct for battles was that whenever they were to go out for a battle, he would read out the riot act for the troops. One, you should not destroy any place of worship, even during battle periods. Do not kill a woman, do not kill an old man, do not kill a small child, even during battle. It was considered by Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam a war crime if any of the companions destroyed a church or a synagogue during this time. That was why no single church, no single synagogue was destroyed throughout the period of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So destruction of places of worship is alien to Islam. The next question. Whether you are a Nigerian, a Malaysian, a Filipino, a Singaporean, an American, ask yourself, are you really from one family under God? The answer must be yes. None of us here, as I said earlier on, none of us here who is not from Adam and Eve. Therefore, our distinguished listeners, we should make concerted efforts persistently to always tell other members of this esteemed family that we belong to one family under God. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Very insightful and passionate sharing. We really appreciate that very much. I think we heard from Reverend Hyun and Sheikh Mariah from Kaduna State in northern Nigeria. So in case you have not read news much, they come from an area that is facing many, many challenges. And so I think very, very appropriate that we begin this discussion with this example. Our topic is faith leadership for the greater good, forging unity and diversity based on shared values. So what we have heard and seen here from our brothers, Sheikh Mariah and Reverend Haya, that actually the shared values must become something we live and exemplify and are part of who we are as human beings. If we can connect on that level of relationship and heart, then even though there are difficulties, even though there are differences and significant challenges, then that bond must be stronger than those differences, allowing us to find ways to solve problems together. So we greatly appreciate hearing from the twins of Kaduna State, Reverend Hayab and Sheikh Mariah. Let's give them one more appreciation. Before we go further, let me just take one moment to appreciate our co-host and partner in this Global Peace Convention and also in this forum. The Global Peace Foundation is very honored and happy to convene here in Kuala Lumpur. We are also very grateful for our partner, the Malaysia Department of National Integration and Unity. I do notice that here with us today, and I just want to recognize him and appreciate Dr. Osman Hassan, the Director General of JPNIN, is here. And so, for those of you who do not speak Bahasa, then the Department of National Integration and Unity in Bahasa is the acronym JPNIN. And so when you hear us refer to JPNIN, it's our partner and co-host, and we're very grateful for their working with us on this important convening in this convention. Next, we want to move to our next speaker, and we're very honored to have with us here to share with us on important issues the Most Reverend Tansri Murphy Hakim, the third Archbishop of the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Kuala Lumpur here in Malaysia. He was ordained and first served at the St. Louis Church in Taiping, subsequently posted to St. Francis Xavier's Parish and Our Lady of Lourdes Parish as parish priest. He completed his studies, a master's in moral theology in Rome. On his return from there, served as lecturer in College General and then appointed rector. 2 terms later, earned master's in guidance and counseling in Manila. We're very honored to have with us here the Archbishop from the Roman Catholic Archdiocese here. Please welcome him, Archbishop.
And so, brothers and sisters, in all the introduction that Mr. Flynn gave and this presentations that we heard is again reaffirms us as creation of God, and therefore we are all brothers and sisters. And it's a pleasure to be addressing everyone as brother and sister in whatever meetings we are, and we don't know all the other titles, but to really feel, think, believe, and speak to one another, reach out to one another as brother and sister. That's the whole context in which we are, and I feel very at home with such people gathered to recognize this fact. And as Mr. Flynn also mentioned, and what our speakers, the foundation of thing for us is this recognition. We are first of all human beings created by God, and therefore brothers and sisters. It's in this context that I skipped the first part of my presentation, which is in similar in line in the Catholic tradition, the Christian tradition, all other religions too. And I want to say this also, that for us, the church, it is not only the example of our present Holy Father, Pope Francis, who has kind of reopened all these ways of behaving towards one another as brother and sister, more than as pontificating, and and giving hard and fast rules or teachings very, very firmly. How brother and sister to one another, that he gets to, from the ceremonies that were so tradition-bound, to stoop down and wash the feet of deviant children, shall we say, or who have gone off the track, wash the feet of women, wash the feet of Muslim women in a what's less important ceremony of the Catholic tradition. And so teaching by his example what we need to be to one another. So I skip all the other official teachings which seem in the same context. Pardon? It's okay if you sit, but if it's there, I think we had sent it, no? Can I be heard? Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay. It's our teaching that we cannot call upon God the Father, Father of all, if we refuse to behave like brothers and sisters towards people created to the image of God. There they have it. With the strong official teaching of the church impelling me, I, as the religious leader, cannot but educate my people under my charge, and lead them to respect peoples of other faiths and work towards building brotherhood. Hence, allow me to share a few initiatives and orientations that I urge my people to adhere to. We have a tradition of celebrating Mother's Day, Father's Day in our church. Now I urge them to celebrate Mother's Day or Father's Day in their neighborhood areas so that they can write loving appreciation cards to mothers or fathers, be they Sikhs, Hindus, Muslims, Taoists or Buddhists. Why? Because we celebrate God's gift of motherhood and fatherhood. In our church system here, our parishes, the parish church, where the parish church is, and we have worship every week, teaching. We also organize it in such a way that there are cell groups. Each parish is subdivided into small area groups of 10 to 20 families who gather and read the Bible or pray, and who try to organize social activities as well. And so there we are attempting to reach out to the base, to people in the area where they live or they work. But here's mainly where they live. And so our teachings get reflected or trying to be practiced in the what we call basic ecclesial communities. So you see here we have, again at that level, a home practice of visiting the elderly people who are bedridden, to bring them the consolation of our religious teaching and the practice of, bringing Holy Communion to them. And we ask the ministers who do this, not only just to be communion ministers, but ministers of communion, they will catch it, by their visiting to other people of other faiths, bringing their compassion, their companionship and consolation to this. And I was happy to hear that in one remote parish, in a remote area, a humble lady sharing with me that she goes once a week to visit a Malay Muslim home where the elderly husband is bedridden stroke victim, and then she helps the wife to sponge and powder and prepare him, clean him for in the bed of this, where he's lying as a stroke victim. I said, my, this is an example of holiness, of a spirituality which reaches out to others who are in need. Some years ago, the Pope's representative to Malaysia, Apostolic Nuncio, who stayed in Bangkok, paid us a visit, and I took him for him to pay a courtesy call on all the religious leaders in the MCC BCHST. So at the end of each visit, I requested the religious leader to say a prayer blessing on the ambassador of the Pope, which they did graciously. What an impression it made on him, who hails from a Catholic country. When he returned to Bangkok, he wrote to me a note stating how overwhelmed he was by this gesture of the religious leaders in the town. You see, we have a good tradition of holding open houses on the occasion of our religious festivals. I urge our Catholics to make it a point to visit their neighbors' homes on these occasions and not go off for a picnic or family outing or church-organized program because it is a public holiday. But this effort to go out, greet them in that friendly way builds the community. So in all communities, there will be some religious fanatics or zealots who will advocate religious fundamentalism and make hurtful declamations. I urge our Catholics to be people who believe in prayer and so pray that God will enlighten the minds and hearts of these bigoted individuals. It's God who can touch the heart and move the hearts and minds of people. Besides the above, we also have an ongoing program conducted by our Archdiocesan Ministry of Ecumenical and Interreligious Affairs body that introduces our participants to the teachings and practices and worship found in the major religions practiced in Malaysia. The program lasts for 6 to 7 evenings, and the talks are given by the various religious leaders themselves, who also respond to the clarifications sought. This program has been conducted since 2001, and numerous parishes have experienced it. One fruitful outcome is that some parishes have organized jointly with other religious bodies blood and organ donation programs, fundraising for the disaster victims, visits to places of worship. I'm sure that there are leaders of other religious traditions who do even more painstaking and strenuous efforts at bridge building at the grassroots level to build up a sustainable peace in our country. May God bless their efforts. And may I conclude with the words of Pope Francis, who in his latest document issued just last week, stating categorically, lasting peace does not arise from a negotiated settlement, but rather from the conviction that unity is brought about by the Spirit of God, which can harmonize every diversity. He does not suggest the syncretism of religions, but a clear and joyful reliance on one's own religious identity and acceptance of a healthy pluralism. When we live out a spirituality of drawing nearer to others and seek their welfare, our hearts are opened wider to God. This indeed is an obligation that is absolute for us religious leaders. I affirm that all great religious leaders hold similar or an identical signature tune. I was heartened by an article that I found in the New Sunday Times some months ago by a local Vice Chancellor, stating that the new Pope will bring greater understanding among people of different faiths and belief as the 226th Pontiff. And so I feel very comfortable with all the presentations done today and the gathering of people who believe so strongly in the brotherhood of all mankind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Eminence. We his input and remarks to share about from the Catholic faith tradition the practices that we can see and understand in the ways in which we live. Again, our premise and our discussion point is how we, as people of faith, and let me say that if we look at the world, the vast majority of human beings ascribe to a faith tradition. And we would maintain that within it's a reflection of our fundamental human impulse and nature that we seek after the transcendent. We seek after it in different ways. We conceptualize about the ways in which we express our spirituality in different ways. But what we see in practice, in the ways in which we live, fundamental, basic, shared values, as we heard from His Eminence, and expressed in all of our faith traditions. So again, our focal point here is, can we, as people representing diverse religious and faith backgrounds, come together based on shared values, find a shared commitment and motivation to solve problems together, so that we can build a world where compassion, where respect for all people, where justice and dignity for all are affirmed in our one human family. That is our main focal point for this session and also this forum today, as well as the overarching theme of this Global Peace Convention convened here in Malaysia. We do have a brief time now for your comments and questions and interventions. We do have a large group. Everyone has a microphone. And so there is an on-off button there. I'd ask if someone would like to comment first, that you could introduce yourself briefly, and also to respect the opportunity for others to also comment, if you can keep your comments brief. And so if you would, I think the simplest way, I'll need to recognize you, if you could signify your interest to comment so I can recognize you and turn on your microphone. Let me start with Dr. Ken Fashola.
Thank you, Mr. Jim. My name is Dr. Ken Fashola. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the distinguished team that are seated here and who have spoken. Oh, okay. I think, okay, much better. I think I would like to acknowledge the contributions that have been made by the speakers. I've been very eloquent and direct and straight to the point. In acknowledging that, I also want to recognize particularly one point made, that ignorance is one of the causes, the main causes of the conflicts we're having in society. I personally think I have done a disservice to myself and my faith by not having encouraged a distinguished scholar like Sheikh Mariah to come to the church, to come and speak. And I hope that after today, I will offer him the opportunity to create a gathering for us to exchange ideas such as this outside this kind of neutral society, but even within our religious settings, where someone like Sheikh Mariah can come to a Christian fellowship and inform them or educate them about the Islamic faith. And similarly, Reverend Hayab or any other minister of Christian faith can be invited to the mosque to also share ideas, mutual ideas about faith. Because I kind of noticed that for such a setting, a gathering such as this, when such distinguished religious scholars come and educate us on such opinions and such things we need to know, we're already open-minded for us to be in such a gathering. So our level of conviction is already below, either in the middle or above average. But we need to go further by taking them across the border into the various zones where they can reach out, or where others who are limited maybe by opportunity or by something or the other to come to such forums can also have the privilege of listening to such exposures. And I think that will be a good thing of also moving this understanding forward. Having said that, let me also acknowledge that in Western Nigeria, what they are preaching is also being practiced amongst the Western Nigerians. You'll find a family where in one family the husband is a Muslim and the wife is a Christian. Or the husband is a Christian and the wife is a Muslim. I take a unique example from the governor of Lagos State, His Excellency Babatunde Fashola, who is a Muslim, but his wife is a Christian. And the previous governor before that, Tinubu, he is a Muslim, but the wife is a Christian. So you find that such faith is already being practiced, but we should expose it more and more for others to appreciate it and also take cognizance of it and imbibe such cultures so that we spread and live in a more peaceful society. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Fashola. Let's recognize the Imam.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Imam Shamsi Ali and I'm based in New York City. I thank you very much, the presenters this morning, my brother the Imam and the Reverend and the Bishop. Let me begin by mentioning a story of my own. When the Pope John II died, I was invited by the CBS TV to be interviewed, along with the rabbi. And in the studio, we shook hands. We barely looked at each other because we had something in the back of our head about one another, especially about a Muslim and a Jew. 7 months later, he called me that I wanted to have a lunch with you. I said to him jokingly that I'm small, but I'm eating a lot. So we met, and from there we began our journey. And this rabbi named Rabbi Max Schneier, we just finished our book, Sons of Abraham. Not only that we build cooperation, but we are fighting for the right of each other. We just came back from Austria. As you may know, that October 31st, there was a decree issued by European unions prohibiting Muslims and Jews to circumcise. So we went to Europe to convince our Muslims and Jewish brothers and also Christians to make joint petition against this law. Because I think it's not about Christians, it's not about Jews, it's not about Muslims, it's about religion. And religions are shared by all. So I just wanted to say that I'm very much inspired by your journey, and that is my own journey from prejudice, ignorance, misunderstanding, suspicions, hatred, to not only cooperating, but fighting for the right of each other. As you quote the verse, Imam, ta'aruf in the language of the Holy Quran, is not only to know one another, but also to build an understanding, to build compassion, to build cooperation, but more importantly, to fight for the rights of others. So when you talk about the importance of Muslims to stand up for the rights of Christians, in the majority Muslim nations, it is very important for our Christian brothers and sisters to stand up for our rights in the Christian majority nations. We Muslims in the United States, we are facing such tremendous Islamophobia, but we are lucky to have Christians and Jewish leaders stand for our rights. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other comments? All right, well,
It's really heartening to listen to the views by two eminent religious leaders from Nigeria, and such expositions I think do a lot of good to all of us, especially to a layman like me. I can talk about myself. The level of exposition here, of course, represents the ideal which should exist between our religions, the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and other religions which believe in monotheism. But regrettably, our leaders also, religious leaders also need to go to some academies to revive precepts of their own faith. What they are taught, really at times, even to a layman like me, of course I believe in interfaith communication from the depth of my heart, it's at variance with their own texts, with their own exposition of the tafsir or the exegesis of their holy texts. And they are giving their own interpretations, which are accepted by the laity, which are accepted by the parishioners or the persons who go to mosques and so on. So there is a need also to bring up to date and to continuously increase the knowledge of people from our faiths. I thought I'll just mention this briefly.
Thank you very much for raising this. I think that's just an addition to what Dr. Faiz said. I graduated from the Baptist Theological Seminary in Kaduna in 1996. Recently, the seminary invited me, having followed my work for the past decade, and asked me to just discuss with the graduating class about interfaith dialogue as a Christian. And I actually shared with them using, because time will not permit me to have used those texts as I did to them, because they are theologians and students, you know, their knowledge is still fresh. I remember after the event, they were so impressed and they requested that I ask Mariah to come to the theological seminary and discuss similar things as a Muslim to theologians. The positive aspect of what I'm saying here is, you see, as pastors, they will have the privilege of leading more than 1,000, 100 of people after graduating. So if you speak to one of them, you are speaking to a larger lay audience. So what you are saying is already going on there. And from my side, I've also been called by many other Christian theological schools to discuss with their students as a pastor, what is it, this interfaith dialogue all about? Can we see it from Scripture? And I think if I'm asked to do that, I have a lot to tell you from a scriptural point of view, how I see prophets of old, how they relate with people of other faith, how they open their gates and we are tolerant of one another, and things work. Of course, we could have the other side of it. So it is going on. And I think as we continue, we'll make more and more and more and more impact if we reach to the theological schools, because they will discuss it even deeper than just what we've done here. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we have one final comment, and we need to conclude here. So let's have one final comment.
Thank you. I was very interested in what was being said, and I have not much, as you say, ignorance is plays a very important part in the perception of people of all the religions. I have not been to Nigeria and know little about it, but I was wondering what percentage of the country is Muslim and what percentage of the country is Christian, and do all the Christians and Muslims behave and think like our two good representatives do? And the Muslims in Nigeria, are they from the Shiite origin or the Sunni origin? Because there are obviously a lot of differences. I know in the Muslim country, you see all that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me, for the sake of time, let me mention that first of all, we have a number of sessions throughout this convention. To give a quick answer, I'm not a Nigerian, obviously. But visiting there, what's unique about Nigeria is that of a nation of approximately 170 million people, roughly 50% are Christian and Muslim. So We're happy that there's a large delegation of Nigerian leaders here, and we hope to have some discussion in other sessions which will answer your question. If that's okay to leave it at that. For the sake of time, we're going to conclude this session. We have several breakouts this morning that we invite everyone to break bread together for lunch. Let me ask Gail Hamilton to describe the breakout sessions.
Okay, so we go from here into two breakouts. The first one is addressing the roots of extremism, and this panel will examine models of countering violent religious rhetoric, challenging misconceptions and distortions of religious teachings, and addressing humanitarian needs through service. Examples will be from Indonesia, Nigeria, Philippines, and elsewhere will be discussed. So we would like to, break into these two groups so that we have a smaller group and encouraging even more discussion. So addressing the roots of extremism will be in this room, and then you can choose where you want to go. The second breakout will be, if you go out these doors and take a right, go down, and it'll be the next room down there will be religion and conflict resolution. There's a growing recognition that religious factors are a critical part of the complex dynamics of political, social, and economic problems. This panel examines the vital role that religion and spiritual leaders can play in resolving conflicts and contributing to diplomatic dialogue and processes. So the religion and conflict resolution will be down the hall, and the roots of extremism will be here. So we'll have these breakouts, and in each group, first of all, you want to establish, there will be a facilitator of each group, and that facilitator can facilitate and choose a rapporteur, someone who can take some notes about the presentations, but also about the discussions, because when we come together after lunch, each breakout group will make a report. So the facilitator can be the spokesperson and in 5 minutes just report on how your discussion went along. So if you would like to move now to the different breakout groups, after that we'll have lunch, and everyone will need to get a ticket as you go out of your breakout room, and the lunch will be upstairs, but we'll explain that a little more step by step as we go along. Okay.
All right, so you're done?
Yeah.
All right, so we invite you to the breakout sessions now. As Gail mentioned, then we will have lunch together after this next session. As we conclude here and as we begin on the further discussions today, let me thank again our presenters from this session, Reverend Hayat, Sheikh Mariah, Archbishop Hakian. Thank you all for joining us here this morning, and let's have a wonderful, meaningful discussion today. Thank you.